All right. So that's not my PowerPoint. Obviously, it's a PDF, but it will do the same for us. So I'm really overjoyed to be here today because I stayed in Paris for several months for professional reasons, and I'm really happy to be here again in my university. And as maybe you heard, I also graduated from University of South Pacific. So PIURN is a really good event, and I'm really happy to see all the people from the Pacific gathered here today in French Polynesia in Tahiti. So today I'm going to talk about the protection of marine areas in French Polynesia. But first, let's do a quick introduction of my country, where we are here today in Tahiti, French Polynesia, because it's useless if we do not understand some major details about this territory. So, yep, it's working. So what is French Polynesia? Like many other countries in the Pacific, there are many misconceptions about French Polynesia. Usually when you mentioned it, people only think about transparent waters, coconuts, but you know what I mean. It's the same on all the countries in the Pacific. French Polynesia is not a small island territory. It's not a small island territory like Fiji or Vanuatu or all the countries in the Pacific. It's a big oceanic state, collectivity for French Polynesia, in the immensity of the Pacific Ocean. So this overseas collectivity of France is spread over a huge area about the size of Europe. You can see, well, you can almost see that here. More than 5 million kilometers square. So it includes 118 islands widely scattered in 5 archipelagos. French Polynesia is obviously not a sovereign state, but it's largely autonomous. We have our own institutions, like our president and our local assembly. To simplify things, the French state only has the power to legislate in limited fields, we can discuss about that, like fundamental rights, military, police, money, justice issues, and several other legal matters. French Polynesia, and that's interesting for today's presentation, is completely competent in environmental issues. That's a big deal because of the fact that the French Polynesian maritime space is huge, as you can see, really huge. So how can we protect everything? Our local government produced really recently a new set of regulations about marine protected areas, MPAs, and marine managed areas, MMAs. So I will use MPAs and MMAs. A kind of legal solution based on the traditional practices, and especially the one we call Rahul here in French Polynesia, but it's also present everywhere, almost everywhere on the Pacific Ocean. So, what is Rahul? Obviously, I am no historian and I am not an anthropologist, but I will try to explain this notion quickly. I must highlight the fact that Rahul is a multifaceted notion and exists, I said it, in many Pacific islands. Traditionally, Rahul appears as a form of tapu, a ban, applied to a class of resources or to a territory, land or sea. This kind of prohibition was controlled by strategies related to political and sacred power. Let's move on with the Polynesian law and traditional practices. Rahul became quite discreet in French Polynesia for a long time on the official level. The French nuclear testing, we talked about nuclear testing, in Moruroa and Whangataufa brought a lot of money, obviously, in the 60s and transformed deeply the Polynesian economy and culture. And I must say, wiped out many of our traditions in many of our islands. As strange as it may seem, the increased political autonomy also led to the disappearance of many traditional ways. It was the end of local legal pluralism, replaced by a more centralized way of doing things here in Tahiti. The oldest legal text mentioning the Rahui was a 1904 decree, but it was removed in 1913, and after that the notion vanished in the Polynesian legal system, with some minor exception. So Rahui was traded for what? For more classical European legal mechanism like MPAs, Marine Protected Areas. A MPA, you know what it is, but I will repeat it. MPA is an area of the ocean where activities are restricted in some way. For example, fishing some tuna, collecting some kind of resources, diving, anything. The maximum protection is generally called a no-take zone, but most of the time it's just management zones to allow the local communities to use their closed environment. So this is what we call MMAs. MPA is generally, when you think about MPA, it's generally no-take zone. It's not the case in reality, but whatever. So MMAs, it's more management zone. Since 1971, French Polynesia has been setting up MPAs with multiple goals, no-take or management, but also regulated fishing areas to contribute, which contribute to better marine area supervision. So the two main successors of the Rahui are the PGEM, Maritime Space Management Plan, and the Classified Natural Area. These two types of MPAs were created in our Code of Planning and our Code of the Environment. It's a French legal structure, so we have also local codes here. There is also the Educational Managed Marine Areas, a type of light MMA created initially by the Marquesan people. It's simply a coastal area managed by children. The goal is for them to gain a better understanding of their environment and to therefore be able to protect it. The maritime space of French Polynesia has been well protected for a very long time, and the government did almost everything to protect the marine biodiversity from other threats. But some issues were nevertheless highlighted, and we're going to talk about that. MPAs are created and enforced by the local power centralized here in Tahiti. If you remember, 118 islands. So with limited consultation of the local communities, with 118 islands and a maritime space bigger than the Europe or the European Union, whatever, you can be sure we don't have enough public agents to enforce the rules related to the MPAs aforementioned. Actually, if we ruled out the French police, and they are more interested in, the pursuit of cars than anything else, well, if we rule out the French police, we only have less than 5 agents, authorized to record environmental offenses here in French Polynesia. So only 5 people for I don't have the map anymore, but you see what I mean. In short, no one will apply the MPAs and MMAs rules if they do not want to. If I am in a Tuamotu atoll, 1,000 kilometers away from Tahiti, who will reprimand me? If I go fishing in a regulated zone, you know the answer, no one. Absolutely no one. What about the new regulation in French Polynesia? The legal solution was to tie the big MPAs and MMAs with the small notion of Rahui. So the French Polynesian government decided to create Tenui Atea, the most important and vast MPA in the world, encompassing the entire exclusive economic zone, the entire EEZ of French Polynesia. This project was executed, and the local government decree number 507 for April 2018, so it's recent, classified the entirety of the EEZ of French Polynesia as an MMA. So not an MPA, but an MMA. The French Polynesian president, Mr. Edouard Fritsch, said in December 2017 that Teinui Atea was actually a rahui and will enable people to live sustainably from the resources of the ocean. So the first step was to manage all the easy, it's done. Now the second step is to protect more carefully some selected zone, and it's partially the case. It can be done by using the previously existing PGM or classified natural area methods, but now Rahui is officially recognized by the Environmental Code of French Polynesia. Since October 5th, 2017, the new Code of Environment legally defines for the first time ever the Rahui. And the Rahui is defined as a land or marine space on which unwritten rules triggered by a resource management imperative are applied in a traditional way. Of course, local communities, they did not wait for this to implement that kind of Rahui. We can talk about Rapaiti or Meo. But anyway, now an official set of rules in our legal system acknowledges this kind of management area, and that's a little step, yes, but never seen before in the French Polynesian law. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. It's weirdly limited to unwritten rules, and it cannot contradict the laws and regulations in force in French Polynesia. So obviously, it's kind of limited. However, I think that the door is now open for a more inclusive method with the Polynesian traditional ways in concordance with the huge MPAs or MMAs legal mechanisms. So we cannot succeed in the protection of our resources without the complete participation of all the people of French Polynesia, and the link between the local level, small level, and the EEZ level must be strong. So traditional knowledge and practice must not be only used as an alibi. We must take what is good and acknowledge it. So what's next? And I will finish my presentation. It's the last slide. Today, all the countries in the Pacific are trying to protect their maritime spaces from illegal overfishing or from the climate change issue by creating huge MPAs. And I'm pretty sure you watch that kind of news with the creation of huge MPAs in the Pacific. Today, we are trying to change at the United Nations the International Law of the Sea regulations on the high seas and the zone with the BBNJ. I don't know if you heard about that. It's the biodiversity beyond national jurisdictions, and creates eventually, and that is the next step, international NPAs or MMAs. Today, we must not forget about the old ways which our ancestors used for so long, and use all the tools possible to protect our mother sea. Thank you, Maruru.